In a distant alien world where the sky is perpetually dark and the ground trembles with the echo of endless battles, Alex stood alone in the middle of the arena. His breathing was ragged, his body battered and bruised. He could feel the weight of the armor that clung to his aching limbs. The arena was a massive stone structure, an ancient coliseum filled with countless alien eyes watching his every move. Each corner of the stadium was lit by flickering torches that cast long shadows across the stone floor. The crowd roared, their voices a mix of excitement and bloodlust, all eager to witness the fight to the death. But Alex was not just any fighter. He had been thrown into this cruel arena against his will, dragged from his home, and cast into the brutal world of combat. No one knew where he came from or why he was chosen for this fate, but one thing was certain. He would fight until his last breath if it meant securing his freedom. His body was bruised from previous battles, the taste of dirt and sweat heavy on his tongue. His muscles screamed for rest, but there was no time for that. There was no rest in the arena. There was only survival. His mind was focused, his eyes narrowed as he scanned the arena. He could see his opponent in the distance, an alien warrior towering and fierce. The creature had two massive arms covered in scales, and its glowing red eyes stared directly at Alex with an intimidating look that sent chills down his spine. This alien was known for its merciless nature. It had killed countless fighters before, Alex leaving nothing but bloodstains and broken spirits in its wake. But Alex had something the others didn't: determination. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for something more. He was fighting for freedom, for a chance to escape the chains that bound him to this alien world, the chance to return to his home, to see his family once more. That was what drove him. He could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the crowd's anticipation bearing down on him. They wanted blood, they wanted entertainment. But Alex wasn't here to please them. He wasn't here to be their puppet. His eyes met the towering alien warriors, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. The crowd's noise faded away as he prepared for the fight of his life. Suddenly, the sound of a gong echoed through the arena, signaling the start of the battle. Without hesitation, Alex charged forward, his feet pounding against the stone floor, his body fueled by the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He raised his weapon, a sharp, gleaming sword, as he faced his opponent head-on. The alien warrior roared, its claws extending toward him, ready to strike. Alex swung his sword with all his strength, narrowly missing the alien's grasp. The fight was intense. Each blow, each strike, could be the one that ended it all. But Alex was no stranger to danger. He had been trained in the art of combat before he was thrust into this nightmare. His movements were precise, his mind clear. Even as the pain in his body intensified with each passing second, he ducked and dodged, narrowly avoiding the alien's powerful claws. He could feel the heat of the creature's breath on his skin as it lunged at him, but Alex was faster. He darted to the side, using his agility to his advantage, and then he struck. A clean, powerful blow to the creature's side. It let out a roar of pain, but it wasn't finished yet. The alien swung its massive arm toward him, sending Alex flying across the arena. He landed hard on the ground, the air knocked from his lungs. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Alex didn't hear them. He was focused, his eyes locked on the enemy that was now circling him like a predator. He struggled to his feet, his vision blurry, his head spinning. He had to keep going. He couldn't stop now. There was no going back. He had a mission, and that mission was freedom. He had to fight not just for himself, but for everyone who had been enslaved by this cruel system. The arena seemed to stretch endlessly, the towering walls and the distant echoes of the crowd adding to the pressure that weighed on Alex's shoulders. He couldn't afford to lose. He wouldn't lose. As the alien warrior lunged again, Alex leaped into the air, his sword raised high. In a single swift motion, he plunged the blade deep into the creature's chest, the force of the blow sending shockwaves through the arena. The alien let out a final guttural scream before crumpling to the ground. Alex stood over it, breathing heavily, blood dripping from his weapon. The arena fell silent. For a moment, all Alex could hear was the pounding of his own heart in his ears. He had won, but the victory didn't bring him relief. only the bitter reminder that he would have to face more battles like this if he wanted to survive. As the gate to the arena opened, signaling the end of the fight, Alex turned to face the crowd, his eyes scanning the stands. But there, in the shadows of the upper tier, something caught his attention. A figure, a woman. She was sitting alone, her dark eyes fixed on him. Her presence was different from the others. There was something in her gaze, something that made Alex pause. For a brief moment, their eyes met. It was then that Alex realized something. This wasn't just any fight. Someone, somewhere, was watching him. And for reasons unknown to him, that someone might just hold the key to his freedom. The roar of the crowd still echoed in Alex's ears as he stood, his body trembling from the intense battle. His chest heaved with each breath, his sword, now heavy in his grasp. He couldn't believe he had just fought, no, survived against one of the arena's fiercest opponents. But even as he wiped the sweat and blood from his brow, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The cheers of the crowd were deafening. But in the midst of the noise, Alex's mind was elsewhere. His gaze instinctively shifted to the shadows of the arena's uppermost stands. That's where he had seen her, the mysterious woman who had locked eyes with him moments before. He wasn't sure why, but her presence had unsettled him in a way no one else had. She hadn't cheered like the rest of the spectators. She hadn't shouted for blood. No. Her eyes had been fixed on him with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. A feeling of unease settled deep in his gut. Who was she? What did she want? And why did it feel like she was watching him for more than just entertainment? Before he could contemplate the mystery further, the guards came for him, ushering him out of the arena and into the dark, cold hallways beneath the Colosseum. He barely noticed the usual jostling and rough handling as they shoved him into a small, dimly lit cell. His thoughts kept drifting back to her, the woman in the shadows. As the iron door slammed shut behind him, Alex collapsed onto the cold stone floor, exhausted but unable to sleep. The pain in his muscles was unbearable, yet his mind was sharp, replaying the strange moment over and over. There had been something almost familiar in her eyes, though he had never seen her before. Her gaze had held a mystery, one that made him feel both exposed and strangely understood. Minutes turned into hours, and eventually, Alex drifted into a fitful sleep. But his dreams were haunted by images of the arena, the clang of weapons, the blood-soaked sands, and the faces of the fallen fighters. But amid the chaos, the woman appeared again. She was there, standing in the center of the arena, watching him, her expression unreadable. Then she reached out her hand, and Alex instinctively reached back. But just as their fingers were about to touch, the vision shattered, and Alex woke with a start. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. The vision felt so real, and yet it made no sense. Why had he dreamt of her? Why did she matter so much? As dawn broke, the door to his cell opened, and a guard stepped inside. "Get up. The Emperor demands your presence," the guard barked, his voice cold and emotionless. Alex stood slowly, his body aching. He had been summoned to the Emperor. This was rare. Most fighters like him never saw the Emperor, let alone spoken to him. But now, here he was, being escorted through the dim corridors of the palace, the stone walls echoing their footsteps. Alex couldn't help but wonder if this was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to speak directly to those in power, to learn why he was here, and maybe, just maybe, find a way out. The guards led him into a grand chamber, its high, ceilings adorned with intricate carvings and golden columns that shimmered in the light. At the far end of the room sat a throne raised high above the floor. It was empty save for one figure standing beside it. The Emperor's daughter. Alex's heart skipped a beat as he saw her again. The woman from the arena. The one who had watched him. But now her presence was even more imposing. She stood tall and regal, her long dark hair flowing around her like a cloak. Her golden armor glimmered under the light, matching the intricate designs on the throne she stood beside. Her eyes, dark and intense, locked onto his as he approached. He stopped just a few feet away, unsure of what to say. Her gaze was piercing, and for a moment Alex wondered if he had been called here to face punishment for his defiance in the arena. But instead of speaking, she gestured for him to kneel. Alex hesitated, then obeyed, his knees hitting the cold floor with a thud. The silence in the room was suffocating, the tension palpable. The Emperor's daughter stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "You fought well today," she said, her tone almost approving. "But your fight is not over. There is more at stake than your freedom, Alex. I've been watching you for some time now. You are more than just a fighter. You are the key to something greater." Alex looked up, confusion flooding his mind. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the battle. The woman's gaze softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of something other than cold calculation in her eyes. "I have been watching the arena for years, looking for someone who could challenge my father's rule, someone who could change the fate of this world." She paused, her lips curling into a subtle smile. "And I believe you are that someone." Alex's heart raced as her words sank in. She wasn't just some spectator. She wasn't just the Emperor's daughter. She was someone with power, with influence, and she had been watching him, waiting for the right moment to speak. Suspense hook. Before Alex could respond, a sudden loud crash echoed through the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. The door burst open, and in stormed a group of heavily armed guards, their faces masked in anger. "Your Highness," one of them barked, "the Emperor has ordered your immediate return. It's dangerous here." The woman's expression hardened instantly. "The Emperor will have to wait," she said with unwavering authority. She turned her attention back to Alex, her eyes filled with determination. "You and I have much to discuss, but first, we must escape before it's too late." The sound of the heavy doors slamming shut behind them echoed through the vast halls of the palace as Princess Celine hurried Alex down a narrow corridor. Her steps were quick, her expression focused, as she kept a hand on his back, guiding him forward with urgency. Alex, still trying to process everything that had just happened, could hardly keep up. His mind was racing, his body still aching from the fight in the arena. But the gravity of the situation made him push through the pain. "I don't understand," Alex muttered, as they moved swiftly through the dimly lit hallway. "What is all of this? Why are you helping me? I'm just a fighter in the arena. What could I possibly have to do with all of this?" Celine didn't break her stride as she glanced over her shoulder at him, her eyes fierce with determination. "You have more to do with this than you realize. You've been fighting in the arena for survival, but your fight isn't just for yourself. You're here because my father, the Emperor, wants to break you. He wants to turn you into a tool, just like every other fighter before you." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He had always known that the arena wasn't just about fighting. It was about survival, but to hear it so plainly put, with so much weight behind it, made him pause. He had spent so much time trying to survive, trying to escape, that he hadn't considered the bigger picture. "But why me?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Why pick me out of all the fighters? I'm nothing special. I'm just like everyone else here." Celine's eyes softened slightly, but her resolve remained unshaken. "Because, Alex, you have something that my father can't control. You're a symbol of defiance. You've survived against all odds. You've inspired those around you without even realizing it. But what the Emperor doesn't know is that I've been watching you, waiting for the right time." She paused, her gaze locking with his as they turned a corner and entered a large, dimly lit room. It was a study of sorts, with maps and books scattered across a long table in the center. Celine gestured for Alex to sit, and he did so, though his mind was still spinning. What was she saying? How could he be anything more than a fighter? Celine moved to the window, her back to him as she continued. "My father's reign has been built on fear. He's crushed anyone who dares to challenge him. I've seen it with my own eyes. But you, Alex, you have the spirit of a true leader. You fight not for glory, but for survival. For something deeper. And that's why I chose you. Alex's thoughts were a whirlwind, but one thing became clear. There was more going on here than he had ever imagined. The Emperor wasn't just some distant ruler. He was a tyrant, someone who had ruled through fear and oppression, and now Alex had unknowingly become a part of his daughter's secret plan to overthrow him. But the question still hung in the air. Why had Celine chosen him? What could he possibly do to take down a man like the Emperor? Celine's voice broke through his thoughts as she turned to face him again, her eyes filled with a rare vulnerability. I can't do this alone. I need someone like you, someone who's seen the darkness of this world, someone who can inspire others to rise up against my father's tyranny. And you're the only one who can lead them. Alex's chest tightened at her words. He had spent so long fighting for his own freedom that he had never thought about the larger impact of his actions. Could he really be the person to lead a revolution? Could he actually bring down the Emperor? I've spent my whole life fighting to survive, Alex said, his voice low. But I've never thought about leading others. I've never thought about changing the world. You don't have to think about it all at once, Celine said, stepping closer to him. But it's already happening. The people are watching you. They've seen your strength, they've seen your will to survive, and now they're waiting for someone to lead them. I can't do it alone, Alex. I've been living in my father's shadow for so long, but I don't have the strength to overthrow him. You do. The weight of her words pressed down on him, and for a moment Alex was paralyzed by the enormity of what she was asking. He had spent his entire life fighting just to survive, never imagining that he would one day have to fight for something bigger. He was just a fighter, wasn't he? How could he possibly lead a rebellion? But as he looked into Celine's eyes, something inside him stirred, a fire that had been smoldering for a long time. Maybe she was right. Maybe it wasn't just about fighting to survive anymore. Maybe it was about fighting for something greater than himself. He stood up, his legs still weak from the battle, but his resolve hardening with each passing second. All right, he said, his voice steady now. I'll help you. But we do this on my terms. I'm not just a tool for you to use. I'll fight for freedom, but I'll do it my way. Celine smiled, her eyes gleaming with something akin to hope. I wouldn't have it any other way. But even as Alex made his decision, the tension between them grew. The Emperor's forces were growing stronger, and time was running out. Celine had opened up to him, trusted him with her plan, but the road ahead was fraught with danger. If they were going to succeed, they would have to be clever. They would have to outsmart the Emperor at every turn, and Alex knew that the hardest part was yet to come. Suspense hook. Just as Alex began to feel a glimmer of hope, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor, followed by the unmistakable clang of armored guards. They were coming. The Emperor's men were on their way to find them, and Alex knew that the choices they made now would either seal their fate or change the future forever. The sound of the Emperor's guards echoed through the dark corridors, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just outside the walls of the hidden room where Alex and Princess Celine had been strategizing. Their time was running out. Alex stood by the window, his eyes scanning the palace grounds below. He could see the distant towering spires of the royal palace, where the Emperor resided, surrounded by his loyal soldiers, but more importantly, by the oppressive weight of his rule. The air in the room was thick with tension, and as he turned back to Celine, he saw the determination in her eyes. We don't have much time, she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. Once the guards realize we're gone, they'll lock down the palace. This is our only chance to act. Alex's mind was racing. The plan they had laid out was dangerous, far more dangerous than anything he had faced in the arena. They were about to strike directly at the heart of the Emperor's power, his throne room, his guards, and the Empire itself. He knew the risks. They both did. But he couldn't back out now. He had already given his word, and he couldn't let Celine down. He couldn't let all those who were suffering under the Emperor's rule continue to live in fear. I'm ready, Alex said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his head. We do this together. Celine nodded, her eyes filled. with both hope and a grim determination. She reached into a hidden compartment in the wall and pulled out a small, ornate box. Inside, gleaming with a soft, otherworldly glow, was an ancient relic, the Emperor's signet ring. "This is the key to breaking the Emperor's control," she explained, holding the ring up for Alex to see. "With this, I can prove to the people that the Emperor's reign is over. I can rally them to our cause, but the ring is heavily guarded and we'll have to fight our way through the palace to get it." Alex's heart sank as he realized the true gravity of their mission. It wasn't just about taking down the Emperor. It was about taking on an entire army. But if there was anyone who could do it, it was the two of them. They had already come, so far. There was no turning back now. Celine took a deep breath, placing the ring into a pouch on her belt. "Once we have the ring, we'll head to the central courtyard. The rebels will meet us there. We'll make our stand together." Alex didn't respond immediately. He looked down at the ground, his mind swirling with doubts. He was a symbol of defiance, and no matter what happened, he couldn't let the people down. "I'll fight for them," Alex said quietly. "We'll win this." With one final nod, Celine and Alex made their way to the palace's hidden exit. As they stepped into the darkness, the weight of what lay ahead pressed down on them. The narrow corridors twisted and turned, leading them toward the Emperor's throne room. Every step felt heavier, but neither one of them faltered. The guards, at the entrance of the throne room, didn't see them coming. Celine moved swiftly, her dagger gleaming in the dim light as she took down the first guard silently. Alex followed, his sword drawn, ready to face the next. There was no room for hesitation. The time to act was now. The two of them fought side by side, their movements fluid and precise. Alex's blade met steel, cutting through the guards with skill honed in the arena. Celine's speed and agility were unmatched, her movements a blur as she disarmed and incapacitated their attackers. But even as they fought, the weight of the situation hung heavily on Alex's mind. Each guard they defeated only brought them closer to the heart of the palace, but it also brought them closer to the Emperor. What would happen when they finally faced him? Could they actually defeat the tyrant who had ruled with an iron fist for so long? Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the Emperor's throne room. The massive, ornate doors were ajar, and as they stepped inside, they found themselves facing the Emperor himself. He was seated on his golden throne, his regal posture unbroken as he looked down at them with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "So the little rebels think they can overthrow me?" The Emperor sneered, his voice deep and cold. "You think you can destroy everything I've built? You are nothing." Alex stepped forward, his sword in hand, and stood tall. "You've ruled through fear and violence, but that ends today. We won't be afraid of you anymore." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "You're too late. My army is already mobilizing. You'll never make it out of here alive." The tension in the air was palpable. The Emperor's guards began to move, closing in on Alex and Celine, but just as the situation seemed hopeless, something unexpected happened. The sound of footsteps echoed from behind the throne room doors. The rebels had arrived. In that moment, Alex and Celine knew that this battle was far from over, but they weren't alone. The people had risen. The Emperor's reign was crumbling. The final fight was brutal. The clash of steel rang through the throne room as Alex and Celine, surrounded by the Emperor's soldiers, fought with everything they had. Each strike was a symbol of their resistance, each movement a challenge to the Emperor's rule. It was a fight for their freedom, for their future. And then, in one swift final move, Alex saw his opportunity. The Emperor, distracted by the chaos around him, left an opening. With all the strength he could muster, Alex lunged forward, his sword finding its mark in the Emperor's chest. The tyrant let out a final, strangled gasp, falling to the ground, in defeat. With the Emperor's death, the palace fell silent. The throne room, once a symbol of power, was now a place of revolution. Alex stood, panting heavily, his body covered in the blood of battle. But as he looked around the room, he saw the faces of the people, the rebels, standing beside him. They had won. Celine approached, her expression a mix of relief and triumph. She took Alex's hand in hers, and for the first time she smiled genuinely. "We did it," she whispered. Alex nodded, his gaze drifting to the broken throne. The Emperor was gone. The people were free. And in that moment, Alex knew that the fight he had started in the arena had led to something far greater than he could have ever imagined.